the Guyana-Venezuela controversy, featuring our Vice President, Dr. Bharrat Jagdeo. Dr. Jagdeo, thanks for taking the time to speak with us this evening.
You're welcome.
Before we commence this segment, however, the team at Kaieteur News as well as Kaieteur Radio wishes to offer its sincere condolences to the families of the 5 GDF officers who died in the helicopter crash. To the families of the 2 survivors, our prayers are with you and we wish you a speedy recovery. Dr. Jagdeo, if you wish to offer your sympathies as well before we commence with my questions, please feel free to do so.
We've already done so formally, but I just wish to once again say how devastated we are with the loss of lives and the injuries that some of our officers suffered. This has caused a pile of gloom to descend on this country. And in the government level, many people who knew these gentlemen are inconsolable. Today I've spoken to a large number of people, and they feel almost as this is a personal loss. So these were brave soldiers. They were on a mission to protect our border, and they lost their lives in that mission. And all we can do now is to ensure that their families are well taken care of. A lot of them have small kids, and I can't imagine how their families are processing this loss. But I know it has caused grave discomfort, disquiet, unease, every description you can think about in the government. We have canceled almost all of the festive season activities that the government engages in, and these officers would get the appropriate send-off that they deserve. As I said before, I also wish to send my deepest condolences not just to their families and relatives, but to their fellow officers in the Guyana Defense Force. The Guyana Defense Force is grieving their loss. It's a tragedy for our country.
Thank you, Dr. Jagdeo. Now, even as our nation mourns such a tremendous loss, your government is working 24/7 to confront the challenges posed by Venezuela's desperate quest for the Essequibo region. And with this, I launch into the first question. We've seen Venezuela's desperation manifest itself in a number of measures. Just to recap for the audience, Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has announced plans to create a law to govern Essequibo, an illegal law at that. He has given an ultimatum to companies to leave in 3 months, and he has also ordered its state company to begin exploration in our territory. Dr. Jagdeo, what do these measures say about the psyche of President Maduro, especially in the context of the dangers it poses for this region?
I'm not a psychiatrist, but clearly one thing that Maduro has demonstrated by acting in this manner is demonstrated that he cannot be trusted. Now, Maduro has said to a number of his colleagues, heads of government, that he had no evil intent on Guyana and its territory, that they did not have to worry that Venezuela will take no action to invade this country or to have any incursion in our territory. The measures after the referendum don't support that narrative. And so I believe that Maduro is confronted with the domestic reality, the domestic problem. He believes he may lose the elections, He's seen his support dwindle significantly, and he's using this issue as a distraction for his domestic politics. And that's why we, in spite of all the assurances that they gave the ICJ and regional governments, we have to be vigilant and we have to take the threat seriously. And we are doing so in the government. And because in that state of mind that you spoke of, anything could happen. And therefore, we have to ensure that, first of all, we lower tension because we want peace in the region. But should he act on those declarations that were made, the legal declarations, that we have a capability to deter him from advancing his ambitions.
Thank you, Dr. Jagdeo. Now, the government has often said that its first line of defense is diplomacy. Now, for the ordinary man, could you explain the power of such a tool?
It's very powerful. In this world, it's important to have friends and people on your side on an issue. Every country, large countries, spend a lot of money on advancing their diplomacy globally. They do it through various means. Because they recognize that it's important, if you want to project an image, a positive image of the country, and it is important to win friends when you have issues confronting your country. In our case, we don't have the same sort of diplomatic assets that other countries have, like large numbers of embassies in every country. Mm-hmm. However, we have been extremely successful at our diplomatic efforts. On this particular issue, even close allies of Venezuela in other matters have not taken his side. And the entire world supports Guyana on this matter. We have the strong statements coming out of the Commonwealth, the Organization of American States, the CARICOM. These are large groupings. We've had a large number of the developed world come out with robust statements, even countries that we're not traditionally aligned to, like France. Mm-hmm. The United Kingdom made some strong statements, and the United States, but France has also made some robust statements. In Latin America, we have seen statements coming out of former heads of state. We've had interactions and discussions with lots of heads of government in Latin America, and they all understand our position, and you see this reflected in their call for our region to remain a zone of peace. Brazil said that up to recently in the Mercosur summit that they had, and they, not only that, but that they also have great respect for international law. And international law in this case is on our side because of the ICJ ruling. So diplomacy has been our biggest tool because we don't have a large army or hard power, but and we've been very successful at getting the world to address this issue.
Thank you. So it's very clear from what you said that some of the powerhouses of the world, like the UK and the US, and even some of the powerful organizations such as the OAS and CARICOM, they're also on Guyana's side in this matter.
Yes.
So that brings me to the next matter. I know the government said that it has approached the United Nations Security Council for intervention on Venezuela's latest measures. Can you give us an update on where government is with
Yes. So the Security Council, first of all, we're extremely pleased that, having written to the Security Council, that the council was convened today. At this moment in the world, there are some major issues. Today, a resolution went to the Security Council about Gaza. You've had the war in Ukraine. There are many humanitarian crises around the world. And therefore, we are extremely grateful that the Security Council, at such a short notice, convened, and they were briefed by the UN Under-Secretary on the situation between Guyana and Venezuela. Now, I'm not going to speak about details about it because this was an internal briefing of the Security Council, but the Security Council has been fully briefed on this matter. It is important for us because the Security Council is one place where any decision made there could have a different sort of impact on relations between countries as opposed to decisions made in the General Assembly. It's more the UN is obligated to enforce those decisions.
Are you able to say at this point if a decision was made based on the briefing that was provided?
All we have been asking for is that there be respect for the ICJ ruling. And I'm sure because this was a closed door briefing, and therefore, from all I heard from the delegations that exited, that they were fully, most countries were understanding of that situation.
All right, so we also...
And I can't, there are some, as I said yesterday at the press conference, there are some issues that...
the government would not telegraph.
Telegraph, but in this case too, we're pleased that the Security Council was convened and has been briefed now on the Guyana-Venezuela border issue. So they're fully apprised of the situation.
All right.
Formally.
Okay. Now, CARICOM also held an important meeting on the matter today. Is there any update that you could provide us with regards to concern?
On the way here, the meeting is still ongoing.
Okay.
So that meeting is still ongoing now. President Ali is in the meeting now with CARICOM leaders.
Okay. And can you just inform the audience as to what's the case that's being made out? What's the context of the meeting this evening?
Well, first of all, it is the first meeting after those measures were announced.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure those measures would have been discussed, and also that these measures run counter to what Maduro and Maduro's government has been saying to the leaders. They live in a kind of weird world. They will go to and this happened up to today. The Maduro government sent some people to talk to some of our allies, and they said that we're the aggressor. We are the aggressor. They live in an alternate universe. It's almost dystopian. That you have to go back to the George Orwell's 1984, his novel, to understand what is happening in a country like Venezuela. So in spite of all of these aggressive measures that were announced, in spite of the fact that they went ahead to repudiate the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice, in spite of the fact that they launched a referendum to annex part of our territory and then subsequent and now are passing a law to control Essequibo, have threatened companies in Guyana, etc. They still claim that they are the victims of Guyana's aggressive actions globally, because I suspect they're feeling the heat from around the world. Every international media house of any repute has painted them as aggressors. And also a number of international organizations have seen through their intent. So, but they still go around the world saying Guyana has evil intent towards their country. So I saw some of them going around the Caribbean now, even doing this at this late hour, even after the December 5th announcements that they made. So we constantly have to fight off that narrative, constantly have to fight off the narrative. And I believe now that the heads would understand, given their actions recently, that they can't be trusted, anything that they say. Now, one issue that has surfaced from St. Vincent and the Grenadines and was part of our discussion for a while now, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, was the possibility of having bilateral dialogue and between Guyana and Venezuela. We made it clear then, and up to yesterday I reiterated this at the press conference, that we're open to dialogue with Venezuela. However, our red line is the ICJ process. That is, Venezuela is trying to take out the resolution of the border controversy back to the bilateral level. We have exhausted that. And I don't want to repeat tonight, because you have done so and many others in Guyana, the long process through that we explored at the bilateral level to have this matter resolved for over 50 years through mixed commissions and then the acting under the auspices of the good officers process, the UN Secretary General office. And so we are not going back there. They're trying to say to our colleagues and to the international community that a recourse to the ICJ is not provided for by the Geneva Agreement. That's false. It was the Secretary General who referred the matter to the ICJ. So we are not going to, they undoubtedly in any talk may want to raise this issue. We can telegraph now, even before we go to any talks, should the talks materialize, that is non-negotiable, the removal of our case from the ICJ. The ICJ has already decided it has jurisdiction to hear the case to its finality, and we are pursuing that case through the ICJ, the auspices of the ICJ. So outside of that, we still have, there's a lot of scope for talking about our region, about lowering tensions, about these illegal acts that Venezuela has engaged in, how they're causing unease globally and here. So we believe we're open to talks. And Ralph heads CELAC. So those talks could be organized through that process, we will participate in them. President Lula at the Mercosur meeting echoed similar sentiments. Today, I spoke with Celso Amorim, and I said that we are inclined to participate in talks, barring those issues, and once those are properly organized. And we don't have a problem with a Brazilian presence and a CARICOM presence at those talks.
But Dr. Jagdeo, are you concerned that CARICOM has...
I'm choosing my words carefully because this is under discussion now, right? So that is why I'm not, I have to be because it's a negotiated kind of approach to talks.
No, I get that, but what I wanted to, just to clarify, is this particular nuance. CARICOM has issued a position of being on Guyana's side and to following the process through the ICJ. But there are statements coming out from leaders such as Mr. Gonzalez. Don't you think the mixed messages can prove to be a bit harmful? And is it the government's position to, as part of this meeting that's going on with CARICOM, to ask that leaders hold one head on this position?
I think even like today there was an article, I think it's today or yesterday, from Ralph Gonzalez speaking about the engagement we had at COP 28 and other engagements relating to talks. And so the whole tenure of his article was about lowering tensions and keeping our region peaceful. At the end of the statement, he said, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has always supported the territorial integrity of Guyana. So having talks doesn't mean that CARICOM will change its position. CARICOM would like to see many of those countries still have relationship with Venezuela too. So they don't want the region to go to, you have a war in our region, to go to war. They don't want this enhanced state of tension that exists between these countries, Guyana and Venezuela. And I think they're offering themselves to be helpful to try to lower tension and to get definitive positions from Maduro's government that they will not infringe on the territorial integrity of Guyana. So I don't see any contradiction. I don't see a contradiction. I have worked with CARICOM leaders from different political backgrounds, and I've not seen any case, not a single case, where when the chips are down, that those countries, that country or that party or that government didn't support Guyana on this matter of our territorial integrity.
Thank you. The political opposition has tabled a motion for urgent consideration on Monday, and this motion seeks to get the government to do a number of things, one of which includes the establishment of a high-level border security commission, the upgrading of defense infrastructure, and actions that can go towards curbing the influx of Venezuelans into Essequibo, as well as the issuance of ID cards by the Maduro regime. Do you see any usefulness in any of these recommendations?
Those issues were discussed before, and positions given to the opposition on these matters. In relation to the refugees, our position on that, it's not a vote issue. We did not tell Maduro, the PPP did not tell Maduro to have a bad economic policy in Venezuela, where people would eventually not have food to eat, so that they can flee to Guyana to come and vote for the PPP. These migrants are coming, the economic migrants, because they believe they can have a better life here, not because the PPP is bringing them to vote. There are different categories of migrants. Many of them are of Guyanese origin, and our constitution and law, in fact, laws don't allow anyone, not APNU, not PPP, not any government, to discriminate against those people. We have to treat them in accordance with the constitution and the laws of Guyana, because their Guyanese citizenship, or they're eligible to receive Guyanese citizenship because of their Guyanese blood. And the Amerindians have, in a lot of cases, the Warraos have moved across the border, many without documents, and they will remain without documents for a long time, because many of them are nomadic. They move from place to place. And then there are other migrants who are coming here. We have an obligation under international law to treat refugees in a particular manner, which we have done. The numbers that I hear out there, if you look at the United Nations, they said about 20-something thousand people who are here. I hear 300,000 and all of that. They're not real numbers. And we have said that these people, we have to be careful to, because there is a possibility that we could be infiltrated by the Venezuelan intelligence apparatus by planting people here. So we have to be vigilant. Our security forces and our intelligence operations are geared towards finding such people if they exist. And we also have to be careful that the communities don't become a Trojan horse here. And we had this conversation years ago. So the concern that the opposition is reflecting now about where Venezuelans are placed and concentrated, we had those in opposition when they said they were going to settle them in Region 1, and they were looking for land in Region 1. Felix was looking for land to build settlements for them. We thought it was a bad idea. So this is nothing new. This matter came up at the meeting between Norton and the president, and we pointed this out to them. We pointed out they asked how many, the exact numbers. We pointed out that sometimes it's difficult because the multiple places where people come in to the country from, they don't come through recognized port of entry. That sometimes the numbers could be off a little bit, but we are watching all of the places where they normally come in from, the Venezuelans. We have an enhanced security surveillance in those areas. We pointed out that under APNU, Felix went to the parliament, and when we asked how many Haitians came in the country, he said he gave the entry figure of 40-something thousand people, but they didn't have the people leaving the country, and they were leaving through mainly the border at Letem, and he didn't even know they left the country because the Haitians were not staying here. They were trafficked through the country by criminal gangs that we ended when we got into office, who then tried to shift the Bangladeshis, and we stopped that too. There were criminal gangs who were collecting money from people who were collecting the money in Haiti, sharing it with gangs here, and they had counterparts. They would go and clear the people through through a special security arrangement at the airport. They would clear them, take all their passports and just bring them through en masse, not like routine migration. If you come to a country, you just go up, you clear to the immigration officer, etc. That used to be organized throughout. So we dealt with that. We dealt with the issue of border commissions, etc. We agreed to resuscitate an old commission we had and to expand its membership. And what's the third element?
They asked about defense infrastructure.
Oh, defense infrastructure. And we pointed out that we are constantly building our capability in the Army. Now we have a 100 million line of credit from India. We are looking at several assets from India, aircrafts, etc. Even the helicopters we bought. These are 2 new helicopters that we bought, the one that went down tragically, directly from the Bell Company. Today, someone sent me a very disgusting post by Ramjatan. This is so vile, and sometimes people complain about me, they say I'm too abrasive and all of that, calling people low life. But can you imagine Ramjatan sharing a post, and I think he wrote the post and then shared it, saying that we bought 2 used 50-year-old helicopters and put the soldiers in them, and therefore we brought it from Brassington's brother, and therefore we're to be blamed for the death. Now these were 2 new helicopters that we bought directly from Bell. They bought a number of old aircrafts that we still can't use when they were in opposition. But this is low-life behavior. Imagine at this time when we have such a big tragedy, to make politics out of the death of 5 of our soldiers and 2 others who came out thankfully and now in the hospital. This is the kind of thing. So I believe that these matters were dealt with already. This is not the time to grandstand. And I believe that is what the purpose of this mission. There is nothing urgent about it. There's nothing urgent about that. What is urgent about that? We continue to build up our assets. We're expanding the consultative mechanism. The opposition has been involved in it. We told Todd and the others to do that through the parliamentary process. We're watching the migrants carefully. What is urgent about that now? So they want that to be debated now so that you can score political points. We're in a crisis situation now, and we are treating this seriously. So I would hope that they stop playing politics with these matters, particularly where it concerns our borders.
Thank you, Dr. Jagdeo. To close tonight's program, I'd just like to ask you to share your thoughts with those Guyanese, especially the residents in Essequibo, regarding Venezuela's sham referendum.
Yes, the referendum, as you said, was a sham referendum. I just want to say to them, we will defend every bit of our country. Essequibo is an integral part of this country. It belongs to all of us. Whether you live in Essequibo or not, that's your patrimony too. It's your patrimony as a child of this country. And we will defend it. It's a duty for all of us, whatever it takes to defend our country. And we will do so through international law, through our diplomacy, and any other means necessary. If necessary, through defense cooperation, we made it clear. So people there might be worried, but they don't have, they need not worry that we were going to abandon Essequibo. That will never, ever happen. And Maduro will never prevail in his, as I say, imperial design. He will never prevail. The international community is robust on this. And he will never succeed in changing the fortunes of this country. So that's all I'd say to, not just the Essequians. And then to the rest, to Guyanese, just, if only we could just focus back on our country and for 1 minute forget the politics, that would be great.
Dr. Jagdeo, thank you once again for taking the time to speak with us this evening on these important matters. It would also be remiss of me not to extend thanks to the Kaieteur News publisher, Mr. Glenn Lau, who actually seeded his program tonight, so that
this is his program?
Yes, so that the show could get precedence. To our viewers and listeners, it's always a pleasure bringing you the insightful discussions from our leaders, and we look forward to continuing these types of conversations in the future. Dr. Jagdeo, we hope to see you back again
Sure.
on the program, and
oil and gas.
yes, because that is long overdue. And to our viewers again, thank you so much for joining us. Good night until next time.
Okay.